everyone. We're back with another video where the fan stands. As we mentioned in our last video as well, due to some technical difficulties, we're going to have to reshoot this part of this video again. So
But no worries, we love to do this.
yeah.
We love it.
So today we're going to talk about Manchester United, our best supporters, best team. Manchester United versus
Our
Brighton,
best
3-1.
supporter.
Manchester United's best supporter.
Number one supporter.
Number one, maybe. Number
To
one.
start
Numero
now.
uno.
Yeah. So Manchester United versus Brighton. Manchester winning 3-1. So Daiyaan, what's your take on it? How do you like United's performance?
Well, Brighton isn't a very big team to play against, but obviously it was an important match considering their recent run of games in the EPL. It was a home game, obviously, so I was expecting them to be a bit more confident. But the positive was the style of football that they played in the Brighton game was the same style of football that they played against Partizan as well. So the point that they were able to keep that consistency in form and the style of play was actually a big positive for me. So for once in the EPL, I'd say not in the Europa League, but in the EPL for once, I saw them to be fairly organized at the back defensively. In the midfield after since the Liverpool game, both Fred and McTominay have been great. And obviously, I always say that, I'll say this again, McTominay was a general. He recovers possession, he helps in attacking. He does everything that he can. He's relentless with the way he plays against teams. Other than that, the biggest positive was that we were playing Rashford, Martial, and Dan James up front. And although Martial was fairly quiet in terms of being the central striker that we had, but the best thing that I felt with his game was that he was able to link up all the attacking options that we had on the field. A couple of negatives from Rashford's end. I feel Rashford really needs to improve his finishing ability as
But
well.
he was dribbling really fast, really well.
Agreed. As in, again, the one thing that I have probably also mentioned in one of our older videos that Rashford I feel is more suited to play from the wings rather than playing as a central attacking player. But my point is that if he's a striker and if we call him or consider him to be a striker, then I feel he needs to improve on that. But we shouldn't forget that he's still fairly young, so there's a lot of development space for him as well. Dan James at the other end was brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. As in, he was relentless. The best thing that I feel about the kid is that he gets beat down by a lot of defenders, yet he stands up and runs even harder. Lastly, but not least, Brandon Williams, a special mention to him. Brandon Williams coming into the team, he's a breath of fresh air. I never expected Brandon Williams, considering the kind of outlook he has as well. He's a thin guy, a left back, straight out of the academy. I wasn't expecting him to have such a presence on the field. But whenever he plays with such passion. He plays, with such presence on the field. Plus, he provides with a very good attacking option. So when Ashley Young's playing, I always feel that all attacks are coming from the right, more from Aaron Van Bissaka's side rather than Ashley Young's side. But with Brandon Williams there as well, we were attacking from both fronts. We were attacking from the right and the left. There was a bit of a negative with possibly Brighton having being able to score one goal, but the reaction that the United team gave
They
was
scored him
brilliant.
almost immediately.
Exactly. So that was brilliant. It was a brilliant goal, a lovely goal, and they were fast, they were stylish, they were exciting to watch.
They were, and I think you know, Oli went with a very attacking side, a team with pace. I mean, the three front the players up front. I mean, they have pace. Dan James, even Pereira, he's regardless of whatever you think of him. I mean, he does put in effort, and
Agreed.
he has a good work
Agreed.
rate,
Agreed.
and he's being played in at different positions. He hasn't been able to find the ideal position for him. So I think maybe he might learn and improve with time. And then Dan James on the right. and Martial and Rashford, they were switching, interchanging positions between them. So Martial was it's a blessing for Oli to have him back in the team, and I think he's one of the players who can score 20 odd goals for United.
And
Two
even
things.
even if he doesn't score, he is linking up the other players
He
as well.
linked up very well with Dan James and Rashford, so they had very good pace up front and a very attack-minded mentality going into that Brighton match.
Two things though. I feel that why did I call this a negative that Martial was fairly quiet? Reason being that if you look at Martial as a player, and I've discussed this with both of you, in fact, that Martial is a player with brilliant finishing abilities. And if you look at his gameplay, this is my opinion again. Correct me if you guys, or let us know if you let me know if you guys disagree with me. That whenever I see him finishing, he reminds me of Thierry Henry when he was young. And having such a player with such an ability, in your team, and him not scoring goals, is sort of like a opportunity that you're missing out on. You know, but again, the other point that I wanted to point out was Pereira's point. I've never called him bad per se, but I'd say that considering the kind of past that he's had and the kind of experience that he's had, he was also loaned out. He's got international experience as well. Uh, my point is that the only thing that he lacks is that consistency and that cutting edge ability of having a very personal impact on a game. That's something that you see McTominay bringing onto the table. You see Brandon Williams. You started seeing Brandon Williams recently. Mason Greenwood being a very young player, right out of the academy.
17 only.
You can see him doing doing
So,
the same as well.
so sorry. Do you
Uh-huh.
think if when Pogba is fit, Pereira is the one who's going to make way for him
So
automatically?
technically, there are two ways to go about this. There's a conventional way of going about this, and there's a more of an innovative way of going about this. Okay, so I've never seen Pogba play a number 10 role. So I feel that the conventional way of going about it would be that Ole is going to play a three-man midfield, a flat three-man midfield with Pogba playing on the left, McTominay playing in the center, and Fred playing on the right. But then the innovative way of probably going about it would be giving Pogba the chance to play number 10 and putting an influence on the final third of the team. And I feel in both cases Pogba is obviously a step up in terms of the kind of quality that he brings into the team as well. A lot of United fans would disagree with this point, but at the end of the day, he does bring a lot of quality. He's got experience. He's played in Europe. He's played against the biggest teams out there.
And he's a World Cup winner, so
Exactly, and
he's
he
got
was a World
done
Cup player
everything
as
on
well.
the big
His
stage.
presence, his name on the score sheet is enough
Exactly.
to send out a signal that
Exactly.
to the opponents. I mean,
100%.
when he wasn't playing if he was playing against Liverpool, I'm sure. Just saying, I mean, this is my opinion again. I mean, I'm sure Klopp would have been very off him, and he would have
A
asked
person
someone
would
to-
have marked
yeah,
him
would have
throughout
marked
the
him
game.
because he's the one who's going to supply the balls to the front
Exactly.
players, and he's going to provide, he's going to give some more freedom and relaxation to Martial.
But I feel
because,
that-
he's going to link up as well with
I f-
the players up front.
I feel that if Ole takes a chance and plays him as a number 10, I see him really succeeding at that position. And I see him emulating the kind of form that we remember him for back in the Juventus days as well. So I feel that him coming back would, interestingly enough, if you look at the squad at the moment, and if you only add Pogba, into that team, this team automatically becomes a team that the opponent would obviously fear and would take very seriously,
Very serious.
because you've got massive amounts of pace up front. You've got Pogba in the midfield with two midfielders. Obviously, we have to wait and see what comes out of the McTominay injury as well. He's gone in for a couple of scans. Not really clear over what's the final verdict on that and how many weeks would he be out. But with McTominay, Fred, and Pogba, you see a very stable midfield there. Two midfielders who can win the ball back, recover possession, and one midfielder who has that acumen to attack. and he loves playing that style of football.
And then coming to defense.
And then coming to defense, you've got
He'll get
Maguire,
some
Lindelof.
freedom, and as mentioned, that he loves to attack. He's a very creative player. He can bring that
Agreed.
creativity, that he can be the X factor for Oli, which is missing in that midfield. And he's not the captain, but he does have this. He is a bit vocal, and he is a natural leader for me. And talking about leadership, Harry Maguire was the captain for this match.
Yeah.
I expected David De Gea to be the captain. So, any thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, with Harry Maguire being, being made the captain, I'd like to mention that he's been the captain twice now, and he's
was
been
in
pretty
Europe-
decent.
in a
Yeah,
European
and
match.
he's actually performed very decently. He's a very vocal person, and if you look at the defensive line as well, he usually leads the line, and the players around him also respect him for his abilities and capabilities. And I guess that's what United bought him for. But at the same time, that question that shouldn't David De Gea been the captain, or rather than Harry Maguire. I feel that as I said, that this is more on the part of the manager, and I feel if the manager has been able to stamp his respect, and develop his respect amongst players to actually respect all of his decisions, rather than looking at it from a very skeptical point of view. And I feel that Ole being Ole, and the kind of positivity that he's brought about in Manchester United, and the dressing room in itself, I feel that the players, and obviously the legacy that he holds at the club, I feel the players respect him enough to probably not take this to the heart, and De Gea to not take this to the heart. And I feel that them winning is a breath of fresh air as well for him.
Well, finally a win for United at home, and
Thank
they were
God.
playing a lot of away matches.
Yeah.
I mean, the squad was good when I saw the starting lineup. It looked, Oli looked very positive and looked to attack from the start. But how consistent do you think United will be? Because we've often seen they've played well for 2-3 odd matches, but then they lose a match.
Something like Bournemouth comes up.
Yeah, and especially when they go away. So do you think that United can play with the same style and system even when they're playing away?
So that's a very good question. But that's the thing. You're playing with a very young team as a whole. Okay, if you look at the average age of United's team, it would possibly lie in the beginning side of 20s.
The early
The
20s.
early 20s, obviously. And I feel that this is the risk. This is a risk that comes along with young players. The consistency factor. Young players can get complacent enough. Young players can possibly lose their focus at times as well. So I guess consistency will definitely be an issue for United, but I definitely see United going into the January transfer window,
Yeah.
and probably
Yeah, but one
getting
thing
a few
about the
players.
consistency and about the youth players, if you look at the stats, uh, the academy players have been involved in 98% or 99% of the goals that United has scored this season. So yes, they're young. You can't really expect much of them, but they are performing. Especially if you just touched upon the left back position. Ashley Young's getting old, so Greenwood coming in, and he's made that position on his own. And also Rashford's improving as well, and a few of the younger sign-ups they made, like Dan James, is performing really well. But yes, in January, I guess they should look to sign up a few more experienced
Agreed.
players. But their academy has produced a lot of good players recently.
But
which are really performing.
talking about the point that you just mentioned, my point is that obviously academy players are obviously going to be on the score sheet. When for the longest time Martial was injured, the kind of options that we had up front was Mason Greenwood and Rashford. Okay, and you can't exactly expect Dan James. He's a very young player, and B, he's just come into the team. You can't expect him to become a goal machine from day one. Secondly, when you look at the midfield as well, you had McTominay, you had Pereira playing there, and Fred, two academy players, and as opposed to one player that you acquired from another club. Then you come on to the defensive side of things. You're particularly talking about your wings. Ashley Young in recent times hasn't been, scoring a lot of goals for United, and definitely when he's been thrown deeper onto the field, he's obviously not going to score a lot of goals. When you talk about the right side, yes, there's
Van
Aaron
Bissaka.
Van Bissaka again. He's got a lot of tracking back to do. He contributes in going forward, but obviously you will not expect him to be scoring a game in game out. When you talk about the central midfielders, Lindelof usually stays behind while Harry Maguire, being more comfortable with taking the ball forward, is usually the one who takes it forward. But you can't exactly expect a defender to be scoring week in week out as well. Hence, the point that you see the majority of the players on the score sheet are academy players.
Our academy players, and I agree. I think they have to be active in the January transfer window,
Agreed, agreed,
even though the
agreed.
academy players are doing well. See, if you take an example of Arsenal, I mean, they produce a lot of academy players, but they were still lacking those superstars
Agreed.
in that squad. You need someone, you need big names to motivate, to increase the morale of the team, and to lead the way forward. These academy players, they need someone to look up to, and you need
Exactly.
such figures. And I
100%.
believe one of them is Paul Pogba. The problem with him is, as fans, like people like us, we know him personally, but I'm sure the guy can give, he gives his 100%. I've seen him play very good for Juventus, and I've seen him do very well for United in matches
Recent
they
times.
won.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
feel poor thing is a victim of very high expectations.
High expectation. The problem is because it's a day and age of social media now. We're judging Paul Pogba or Lingard or Rashford on what they're doing off the
Off
field.
the field,
So
yes.
this is one problem. But then again, you need to sign
I
few
agree.
players, and you need to bring in sense of competition as well. I mean, United, this starting lineup which they played against Brighton, if they add a few regulars back in the squad when they return after injury, it looks very good. But the depth is not there.
Yeah, if these guys get injured,
Yeah, I mean, Greenwood is just 17. You cannot expect a 17-year-old to carry all the burdens on
Agreed.
his shoulder and
Even
get the
Rashford,
goals.
for that matter, as in
Yeah, but still,
Rashford has been,
Rashford, I think,
he's had
been
Martial and
put under a lot of
Rashford,
pressure as well.
The reason why expectations are high because it's the fourth or fifth year in the club.
Agreed, agreed, agreed.
Martial, he hasn't played a lot because of injuries, and he fell out of favor, I think, with Mourinho as well.
yeah.
So he's there since
Mourinho was about to sell him off.
he's there since 2015, and he came from Monaco. Similar comparisons with Henry, and he scored a brilliant goal in his debut match against Liverpool. I still
Against
remember
Liverpool.
that when he did
It's
score.
similar
he
to
scored-
Henry.
similar to Henry when he scored against Liverpool. Trust me, I was sitting with the United fan, and I said, you've got a gem of a player in your team. So him and Rashford haven't been able to develop the way fans and managers in the club wanted them to. But I think this is the time now. There isn't pressure because I don't think they're expected to win any silverware.
Yeah,
A
but
very good
the fans
example,
are
though.
still putting in pressure.
See, United fans are very optimistic and they have high expectations. I don't blame them because of the
Why are you
last.
pointing at me, though?
I think all of them are similar. 90% of them are similar. But see, 25, 24 years of unmatchable success. I mean, winning the Premier League. Arsenal came in, Blackburn won, Leicester
But
won.
they were still second. They never came third.
Teams won, they always found a way back. Ferguson,
Agreed.
maybe for the longest I saw him not winning a league was not more than 2 years. When Mourinho came in, Premier League was about to a revolution came in with the Russian money, but Ferguson still he won 3 years on trot, and he made Ronaldo into a beast, which we know and see today. So they're used to that success. They're used to all the glory. And Old Trafford, it's not called the theater of dreams for
No reason.
No reason.
But now that your brutal generalization about United fans ended, I do agree with what you're saying. We definitely need senior players. If you look at the example of when Ibrahimovic came into the team, before that, pre-Ibrahimovic, if you look at Rashford, Rashford being the case in point here, the kind of confidence level that he had before that and the kind of character he had before that was merely a kid's character. I see that Rashford had grown through that period because he had this other counterpart in the form of Ibrahimovic, who was full of self-belief, full of confidence, you know.
And full of ego.
And exactly, and post that era, you may have seen, Rashford being very selfish about going for goals, going for free kicks, going for penalties, and that's actually, when you're looking at a striker per se, that's something that comes part and parcel with them, but the fact that he's linking up really well, and he's actually creating a pretty decent, pair with Anthony Martial, that's a big positive for United, and I feel that United can go fairly positive.
I think this is the first time in both of their
into
careers
the
they're playing so
international.
many matches together.
Exactly, and
Yeah,
that's a good
definitely. So
thing.
they have to,
Either
have
Martial
to,
used to be injured or Rashford
so
was
you
not
have
playing.
to start making chemistry when you're playing with someone you don't play very often on the pitch on a regular basis. So you need some time for the chemistry to start building and
Agreed.
gel in and understand each other. But in this match, I think they demonstrated that United can play the way
We expect
we expect
And
and
we
the
got a
fans expect.
glimpse of what Ole really wants out of his team, and I feel that even Scholes mentioned this after the Partizan
A
game,
fast game, a fast flowing game.
exactly, that he felt that
Fast flowing game,
Ole
but
just needs
the
time.
only thing is he needs support off the board. Woodward needs to back him, like
100%.
unlike the cases with Mourinho. I mean, he needs to support Oli. That's all
Ole, if ever
I can say.
you're watching this video, please get Erling Haaland to your team. I'd love that.
He'll go to
guy.
Leeds. Leeds,
Yeah, he wants to go to Leeds. Alright.
Leeds or I mean, Real Madrid won't stay quiet.
Yeah,
34 goals.
Yeah, he can go to Real.
Oh
I
God.
think we should make a video on the possible transfers.
100%. We'll definitely do two videos. Hassan's going to be leading one. That's going to be based on the VAR. And we're obviously going to try, making a video on the possible transfers to possible
transfers as
English
January
clubs.
is coming close.
100%, 100%. We definitely should, because the January transfer window. Yes, there's not a lot of business that happens in that video.
There are sides who might.
But
acquire someone because
yeah, exactly.
They need some.
Every window is exciting, I feel.
Yes.
I follow
Especially
them
this
from the
one,
day they
this
open.
January one.
Exactly.
Especially the rumors coming in, they add a lot of spice to.
Again, there's another signing that United's been linked to, and that's Tim Werner. Tim Werner isn't. He's from the Bundesliga.
Okay, so
And he's
I think they have to
also
fight with Liverpool for that.
exactly, and he's actually a very exciting talent
Yes,
as well.
absolutely, and we'll make a video on. this
100%,
as
100%,
well.
100%.
So,
Alright.
that's
So
all.
I guess this is this is about it for the match. Do remember
That's Hassan going on a rant.
So do remember to like the video and share it with your friends and subscribe to our channel. Also,
do share, United fans, what do you want to hear about? Do you think Ollie's the right man for the job? Let us know. Maybe we just base our opinions. We're not real experts,
Agreed.
hardcore experts,
Agreed.
and
Agreed.
we cannot predict
For sure.
the future for sure. So
But I did predict one of the score lines.
yeah, you did, but only one. And since then, he's always predicting 2-1.
That's a safer. That's a magic number.
So let us know. Do subscribe, leave your comments, do share, watch the video, and we need those comments. They'll play a big support for us to improve.
And
That's
United
all I can
fans,
say.
give me some love.
Alright. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
Nah,
you.
man.
Bye bye.